This meeting. So we're starting the recording. So this is the meeting of the Ad Hoc Grant Search Committee for December 30th. My God, December 30th, 2020. And present we have Ed Gibson, Town Administrator, some anonymous person called Catherine Frederici. No, actually, Kate Swiss-Deck-Rooks from Board of Health, and Diana Federman, a guest, but who's been very involved in the Mass Trails Grant Program, and myself, Chris Fowles, and we may have Paul Fergal from the Greenway Committee joining us shortly with a little bit of luck. So thanks everybody for getting together, and I know that the meeting time is maybe not ideal, but I thought we wanted to get in the meeting before the end of the year if we possibly could. And I think with the meeting here, I'm not seeing anybody hanging out there as wanting to be in on open time for the public, but I'll make that available if anybody is there. I don't see any other participants at the present time. So why don't we just jump into a little bit of an update. People may have heard, but Ed, why don't you give us a mini update on the CARES Act craziness that we've gone through in terms of what's happened?
Well, we've gone through the craziness of in the last week and a half of trying to order everything that we possibly could that we've been approved for and get it here by today, and then and having a good deal of success with that, but some things just wasn't be possible. And then yesterday, finally getting the confirmation that basically the CARES Act expenditures has been extended through December 31st of 2021, giving us another 12 months to actually expend those approved funds. So it's
glad nobody held their breath.
Very stressful. It's been a very stressful week and a half, but that was absolutely very welcome news that finally came yesterday.
Yeah,
we were anticipating it because we had seen it in the summary of the legislation, but like I say, in this world, as much as you see it and think it's coming, you don't believe it until you actually get the recognition and the announcement of it. So
yeah, that's great. Paul is joining us here just for a second. Here, hi, Paul.
Hey guys, how are you?
Good evening. Good. Just getting going.
Paul.
So yeah, we were just saying that the grant time frame for the CARES Act was extended by some magical person in Washington or somewhere. So we're glad not only to have the extension, but it's much longer than I would have ever imagined. I would have figured maybe a couple of month extension, but a whole year is just amazing. So essentially that allows people, the various departments that had things approved, to actually finish purchasing them and getting them within a reasonable time frame. And we'll have to see if we get any further guidance, but certainly what's already been approved, right, Ed? They can keep on trying to procure, right?
Absolutely.
Good, good. Well, I'm hoping, I know I heard from Dan that the signs for the park came. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, I guess they got delivered today. So they're delivered, they're stored there. So now they can be installed when the people are available to actually put them up. So
great.
That's good.
I don't suppose you got any other big ticket items like the awning, did you?
I didn't see it come today.
You might not have missed that one. So
I heard there was a big laptop crunch as well.
Yeah,
they got ordered though, right? So they're in place in that way. So that's great.
Actually, they'll be here tomorrow. So
great. No, that's great. No, I think everybody did a whole lot at the last minute trying to, after we got the final approval, in the middle of December to try and get this done. So thanks everybody that may be listening and was involved in that, but that's great. The other thing, I guess, we are aware that we as a town applied for this funny Housing Choice Small Town Capital Grant on December 10th. The grant application was put in by the deadline for $100,000, and we have no new news on that. Hopefully we will hear something before the end of January. But this was to start the process to acquire some funds to buy to fulfill the letter of intent, I guess, with the railroad, and allow the town to start purchasing of the railroad right-of-way to begin our bike path greenway project. So that's all that's been in play so far. And so tonight's meeting is really to focus on sort of that step 2, kind of the follow-on to the small town grant. Whether we are successful or not, there are a couple of other grants, as we know, that are coming forward that are due both on February 1st. One is the Mass Trails grant, excuse me, and the other is the Land, Water, and Conservation grant. Both of them have a deadline of February 1. And so tonight I wanted to kind of toss some things around and show you some of the information that I gathered from both of them and see what anybody thinks about where we should really, excuse me, focus our attention. As you may know, Diana's been involved with the Mass Trails grant for round 1, which was a successful bid last year, having not made it right in 2018 or 19. Diana, was that right?
Yeah, I think it was 18. Yeah.
So that finally was approved last year for around some $50,000.
Correct.
And then the intent had been to do some refurbishing out at Manhan Meadows. There's lots of trail work to do, to move some trails, repair, replace bridges with sensible and safe walkways, etc. And at the time, we were advised to break that grant request into 2. And so Mass Trails is awaiting our application from Southampton for the second round of Mass Trails. And Dinah, I know you're 2/3 of the way done on that, from what I gather. Is that true?
Right. Yes, pretty much done with what I can do. We're waiting for our consultant, Conservation Works, to give us a budget, because it's mainly for the big bridge over the Manhan. That's the big piece of this. And, you know, I don't know the details of how much that would cost and all the parts and stuff like that. So we really need them to do the budget, and hopefully they get back to us really soon, because Concom has to approve it at their next meeting, January 11th, because the deadline is February 1st.
That's right. Yeah. Okay. All right. Good. Let me hold on 2 seconds. I'm going to shut something off here because it's going to make some noise. Just a minute. I'll be right back. Sorry about that. If it didn't work anyway. I had the, I shut off my heat, but my fireplace makes this chattery noise. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yep. Okay, good. Anyway, with the Mass Trails grant, I'm going to share my screen a little bit, if I can do this correctly. We have heard that we should try to apply for the Mass Trails grant also for the Bike Path Greenway. And we got this information shortly after the announcement that round 2 for the round for 2021 was open for Mass Trails. And we had this email here from somebody at DOT stating that we should go ahead and try and apply for it, and that this Amanda Lewis person, who is from DCR, who Diana, I believe you've been liaising with on Mass Trails in general.
Yeah, their office is in Northampton.
Right. Yeah.
On Damon Road.
Yeah. So apparently she had confirmed to this person at DOT in, I assume in Boston, that funds for the grant, Mass Trails, could be used for the right-of-way acquisition. So we have that information. What I did was finally just put in a message to Amanda, because as I read through just about everything I could find, and let me bring up one more thing here. As I read through lots of different things here, there were a wide variety of, come on here, hang on. A wide variety of things in terms of the last grants that were done that talked about, oh, I can't find it. Hold on just a second here. Come on now. That talked about maintenance and surveying and engineering all those types of things with regard to the trails grant, but there was really nothing mentioned anywhere that I read online about land acquisition. So I was a little concerned that, you know, I wanted to be sure that we should try and go for this. But I went through their FAQ page and I just highlighted a couple things here in yellow. Can everybody see that okay?
Yep.
All right, so basically focusing on design, construction, maintaining, so rehabilitation and maintenance were big on some of the grants that were awarded in 19 and 20. But the purpose of the program is really to create this network of trail systems enjoyed by everybody, so not just town residents. It needs to be broader than town residents, which is obviously, you know, what ours would do. And then basically talks about paying for project development, design, engineering, permitting, construction, and maintenance. Nothing yet mentioned in terms of land acquisition. And so as I went through this, I was like, there's one little thing here, which if anybody might have a clue about this part, acquisition in limited cases of easements and fee interest in property. What does fee interest in property mean? Anybody know? I don't.
Ed knows.
Ed, do you know what that means? Fee interest in property?
No, I don't.
Well, I think that the acquisition of easements is the term or the terminology we use in respect of acquiring land for the purpose of the project. And so the in limited cases implies what it implies.
Yeah, not the top priority, I would say, or not the most frequent priority. Anyway.
Correct. So
would you say that the purchase of the right of way though would be having the right of way? That equals an easement. Is that what you're saying?
That's exactly correct. That is the terminology that the state uses on these types of applications. So like in the Mass Works Fund, in that world, they imply easements have to be, you know, acquired before they would pay for work that is not on their on state property or town property for that matter.
Okay.
Or public property.
Yeah. Okay. Well, then that was about the only mention that I saw of it in anything I've read on their entire website here. Does mention here that we have to pay for the expenditures and then submit reimbursement. So I guess I was a little confused how that happens. Where do we have the money? They give us the money and we use that money. Is that it?
No. So what happens is it's basically you take funds out of general fund and you submit an pay application to the state. And usually it's a quick turnaround that they have based on my experience with Mass Works. And maybe Ed can talk about this, but it's usually taken out of, it's a reimbursement taken out of general funds, and then they pay back that fund in a short period of time. It goes back into your
as we spend it. Okay.
Yeah, if it's a bigger amount, they can borrow it and then pay it back.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Okay. Yeah, and you love the definition for a fee interest. A fee interest is the legal possession of both the surface and mineral rights for a property. The owner of a fee interest may choose to sell the surface rights, but retain the mineral rights, or vice versa. An oil and gas firm does not usually acquire a fee interest, but that's what a fee interest in property is.
Okay, thank you.
So it sounds just like us, just like we're what we need.
Yeah, who knows what's under that railroad?
Exactly.
Yeah. Anyway, okay. So this is not a stopper. I mean, this idea of paying for the expenses and submitting for reimbursement is something we could handle. I'm gathering.
So Ed knows the mechanics well, right? In town. I mean, Ed, how have you done this in the past before with other projects in the city or in the town?
Yes, we have.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I was thinking probably with Palmer Meadow or Clearwater, we've done something along those
Yeah.
lines.
I mean, that was a lot of money, and it all worked pretty smoothly.
Yeah.
I didn't see the inner workings of it, but I know all that was reimbursable grant too.
Great. Okay, good. And so basically a minimum of a 20% match, which we would have to come up with. And that can be other grants, it can be donated services, and it can be the CPA funds, which we had talked about before, in terms of being right now for us.
Can I just
Yep.
Can I stop there for a second?
Yep.
This is a very broad definition. In reality, we already meet that grant by getting a state funded project that's $6 million.
Oh.
So,
right.
I mean, because
wow,
it says federal funds right there, and that's where that's coming from. So,
oh wow, that would be cool. Yeah.
So think about that in terms of how that addresses that matching. So I guess, you know, maybe that's frowned upon, but the way that it's defined there, it's clearly the way I read it.
Yeah,
that's an interesting perspective. I wouldn't have thought of that. That's great.
I hadn't thought about that. Yep. I would like that idea. Ed, do you agree with that? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a possibility. We can look into that angle.
Yeah.
I think in the grant itself, it asks like, is there a vote required, or what steps are needed to get this match? So,
but if we already have that approved, then we could. Seems pretty straightforward to document that.
Right.
Yeah. Right. And then basically would have 1 year to complete it within a fiscal year. So that would allow, and again, this would just be for the acquisition of it. So that sounds like it would be reasonable as well.
Yeah, I think we need like we need clarification on that, I guess. Okay. I mean, I know it says that, but I think it's worthwhile to reach out to Mass Trails just to get their feedback on that acquisition, the way it's written there. I mean, it's the last bullet point. I'm not sure if it's if it's not ideal, I might suggest we look at it to fund other components, being design or other components. But I don't know, how do they weight? I mean, is there weighted? Going back to those points that you identified, are those weighted in any way in terms of?
We can go into the app. I've got the application draft pulled up here too.
Okay,
we'll take a quick look through that.
On the website, it says they favor shared use trails. They favor, connections and, like the trail that we got the money for is really not a priority, just a in-town kind of pedestrian hiking trail is not their priority, but they did fund it, but
I guess my bigger question is for the purpose. Does the purpose get weighed one way or another? Meaning, is it more ideal? Is it more beneficial for us to use it towards acquisition versus the design side, or vice versa, or other components of the project? I guess just to see what positions us the best to get the most that we can out of this.
Okay.
Well, is the $6 million that might expire, is that based on acquiring the land or just doing something?
Acquiring the land, right?
Yeah, we would have to acquire the land and have the design done to access that $6 million.
Okay.
I can't answer Paul's question. I don't know whether they would prioritize the land.
Maybe Chris knows in the way that they ask the questions. I guess that's the.
We'll go through and see. It's a good point. But is your question too, Paul, whether or not we could accomplish something within a year's time? Is that part of your question or not?
Well, that is a concern because it ideally speaking, the acquisition is the easiest lane to be in to accomplish that goal.
Sure. Yeah.
The rest is going to be, can you do the other one? Yeah, I think so, but it depends how much they give us. But it's, I mean, can you blow $300,000 on a design project in 1 year? Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's just
finish. It does say that they can extend it you know, if the
Yeah.
time, and this year they did extend it for everybody just
Mhm.
because of the pandemic.
Right.
So
I
that's a
think we
good
have till the end.
rationale to keep. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And basically, as Diana said, I mean, they're looking at, I think this is a key thing here, prioritizing building out longer networks across the state and filling in critical gaps in existing networks. So, I mean, that fits us to a T as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
I
That's
guess
a home run statement there for our
yeah,
project.
that's one I think we need to borrow, frankly.
Yeah.
And
And
then,
then
yeah,
they funded, I went to a conference and there was a lot of talk about the network around Boston. I think they call it the Diamond or something like that.
Yeah.
And
You mean the green emerald or the
Yeah.
emerald?
that's it, the Emeralds.
yeah,
Yeah, that's in
And-
Jamaica Plains.
Yeah. And I just listened to it all. I thought that Mass Trails helped buy the trails, but I'm not sure. Yeah.
yeah. So, anyway, and then eligible applicants can put in for requests for more than one project in the same round. So that, you know, in writing at least confirms the notion
Right.
that we have the one in for, or will have the one in for Manhan Meadows. And if we put this one in, it's a possibility. They're two very different requests in many ways, although I think we could make and maybe should make a linkage to each other, because the rail trail really goes right by Manhan Meadows. So, you know, it might make a good argument on both sides. I don't know.
Well, we definitely did in the Manhattan Meadows one. Said
The first
that
round or on the second round? Yeah.
there's money in there to make a little access to where the trail would come.
Oh, great. Okay.
That's great.
In round one.
Yes, in round one.
Oh, great. Okay. All right. So that was basically all that part was. And let me just see if I can pull up one more here. Oopsie, lost it. Oh, not that one. Wrong one. Get out of here. Things I want to share and I can't share. Give it a break. Come on.
So you emailed Amanda Lewis but didn't hear back yet? Is that right, Chris?
Right. I have not heard back, and I did it probably a little too late to be helpful for her. But I'm assuming she will get back to me. And I just wanted to, you know, even though we got this from DOT, I think it's, you know, it says to contact Amanda Lewis to have any questions. So I think we better, you know, just go straight to the source.
Right. She's very helpful.
So hopefully we'll hear from her within after the new year, I would assume, in the next week. So this is the template. They allow you to download the template and just sort of see what's in here. And I'll just run through that. It's just basic stuff. And let's see. So typical, where it's going to take place, and then the 3 or 4 sentences of the project description. So very, very limited. It's interesting on this one, and I think the other grants I've seen too. The project description, which I would think would be a little bit more detailed, seems to want to be very concise. I mean, more than I guess I would have ever expected on some of these here.
Yeah, but this part is for in case they use it for publicity, like they always do. They announce, you know, and they just have a little soundbite of.
Gotcha.
This town got that. This town got that.
Okay. Well, there's the rationale. Okay, thanks. That's a good total insight there. Absolutely. Okay. There is a separate sheet, which I won't bring up, but there's this massive spreadsheet of all the costs and budgeting and timeline, which looks like a little bit of a hair puller at certain points. 80%, as we've said, could be asked for, and a minimum of 20% required as the match. Primary activity. So again, as you look at the activity, you know, acquisition kind of falls into other, you know, so that's why, you know, even though we've been told it can be used for the right of way, it's probably true. I'm not saying we shouldn't do it. It's just like, I just really want to double check just to be sure that we're not, you know, going down a side road here somewhere. Obviously, shared use path would be the main thing, I guess. None of the others apply. Yep. And then user groups, we can chalk off several of those. I don't know, at least the first up to the cross-country skiers for sure. I don't know about horses, but probably none of these guys, but.
Well,
there's a horse farm next to it.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
true. Oh, in your backyard, as a matter of fact.
Right.
Yeah.
The conceptual or the feasibility study actually had a concept that identified.
Oh, that's right. I remember reading
concept that had that in there, but honestly, I don't know if there's enough width to really entertain that idea.
Yeah.
Because that's going to require a significant amount of fill to be brought in, and it might be expensive.
Or it might be only for a portion of it or something, closer to the horse farm areas or something, maybe. I don't know. But anyway, to be decided on that one. So specific site, etc. Now here we get into the legal or the name of the permissions for project work. So I guess this would this is the thing where I was a little bit fuzzy. Let me just make this a little smaller so we can all read this here like that. Okay. Documentation for permissions for project work by all required entities as an attachment. So
I think the letter of intent goes here.
To sell.
That would do that?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
And frankly, that kind of identifies all of the right-of-way easement considerations that are in place. So.
Okay. All right. Okay.
I'm just glancing, it occurred to me I should have done this before, but I'm looking at the 2020 awards from Mass Trail, and there are acquisition of the rail bed, securing the tunnel, blah, 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 in Clinton for the Clinton Greenway.
I saw that.
Yeah. So I think,
good.
I think we should be pretty confident that that's a possibility.
Okay. All right. That's good. Great. And so this nonprofit private entity, this wouldn't, apply to us, right? So that would be I guess we'd have to answer something, and there would be guaranteed public access once we acquire it, right? So.
Right. Exactly.
It's kind of one of those funny answers. Accessibility, again, we'd have to deal with the whole ADA thing, but that would certainly be the point. I think there was talk in the feasibility study too, Paul, right, about wheelchair access, et cetera, right?
Yeah, I think we say that it's going to accommodate. There's no way we get around without doing it. So.
Yeah.
Right.
And that gives you points too.
Right. Okay. And then right now, if it was just for the acquisition, there wouldn't be any real equipment per se involved, I would assume.
Right.
And then here we go. So if applicable, has project need form been submitted to DOT? What number has been assigned? So here we go.
Yes.
So
just
we have
give
a
them the DOT number.
Yeah.
Just say both PIF have been submitted. Project has been awarded $6 million. The project number is blah, 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 608324, whatever it is.
Yep. Okay. All right. That's easy enough, I think. And then comes more of the narrative. So this is what it's talking about in some of its criteria. Some of this, I think we would assume.
I think that first question, we exemplify the first three things on that list.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this here,
critical gap. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So, diversity of Massachusetts residents in general, it's open to the wider public. So I guess we could.
And on that one, we're not an environmental justice community, but the trail in Easthampton goes right by. You can look on them. There's an interactive map to find out where those communities are. So in Easthampton, it does. Holyoke is full of them. And I think in Westfield, I don't know if it comes near it on the rail trail, but there's also environmental justice community there.
Okay.
So we would mention that.
And I think the low-hanging fruit is Easthampton, as you said. I think that's the easiest one to hit out of the park.
Yeah.
And what map is that, Diana?
It's an Oliver. Go to Massachusetts Oliver. GIS mapping, type in Oliver GIS mapping, and
Yep.
they have layers that identify those different types of environmental justice.
I think I did it just by going to environmental justice website, and they have
Okay.
it there too.
Okay, good. All right. So reasonable budget, strong local match, and if indeed that 6 million can be our match, then that should be pretty strong, I would think. So yeah, ready for work. So again, a lot of the reports that have been done, the studies that have been done, should help make our case. We were not able to use them all in the other grant application, but we certainly ought to be able to do so here. Safety issues, accessibility issues, I'm sure we could manage to address.
Yeah, I think it's easy. The safety part, I think we say something like it removes bicycle traffic or promotes, traffic to get off of Route 10 and
right.
get on a dedicated trailway that is
right
non-existent.
Yep. So then this section 3 then is where it gets into a little bit more technicality in terms of what the trail's gonna look like. So this is more into the design stuff, and I wasn't sure how much of this, we could realistically respond to at the present time.
I think this is not that hard to say. I think based on where these projects are going through the Mass DOT program, there's a minimum. So Mass DOT has a trail design guidance that has been developed in the last 3 years.
Okay.
And the point that brings to us is the minimum width that they want to have. And I think we bring to the table and say that it's going to be in coordinates with the Mass DOT trail guide, the trail design guide. And we identified that it's going to have a minimum width of, let's say 10 feet, right? And it's going to have a paved way, and it's going to meet the standard, and it's going to provide access points at strategic locations or something like that.
Okay.
And what that does is it basically identifies all the bullet points they're looking for in terms of the material, the grades and terrain. And the grades and terrain, that's really easy because it's an old rail bed, so they're relatively flat. So if they're looking for more information, we can always submit the feasibility study that identifies this project's nature.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Good. All right. Well, maybe it's not as complicated as I thought. All right. Filling in the critical gap in connectivity. I think that's easy to talk about. And after we look at the maps, we can probably figure out 3.4 in the environmental justice. Readiness, again, the various plans that have been done. There was the structural analysis, there was the environmental analysis, studies that we can attach if there's a place to attach documents, which I assume there is. Community support.
On 3.5, go back to that.
Yep.
I know there's been a lot of outreach about this, but also mention maybe you've talked to seniors. The only kinds of underrepresented voices we had in the other grant was seniors and maybe children. But I think both of those are, if somehow you can say that there has been outreach about that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, certainly. I mean, tying into, well, especially the level of response to the master plan, where that came up as the Greenway came up as a high priority, and also the open space update plan. But okay, good point. Yeah. Yeah. We don't quite fall into some of these other
no, we
missions
don't.
in our community, but all right, good. So yeah, some other stuff, maybe again, a little bit repetitive, it seems, here in terms of safety and disabilities, or maybe the others were just a check off, and here's where we actually have to explain it a little bit more. Unique high quality recreational experience for the visitors and residents of Massachusetts. So I'm sure we can fill out something here. Cultural and natural resources protection. Is it near anything historic? Well, our famous Sheldon's and Lyman Mill, right? Any other odds and ends we can think about? We can.
So that should be in the feasibility study as well, and also
Okay.
that those hotspots can be identified from there.
Okay.
Yeah, and the canal went through right there by Sheldon's too.
Right. Yep.
Don't you have
Exactly.
to reach out to the National Historic Endangered Species Program for this?
Oh, maybe.
Yeah,
Uh,
I think there's two entities, and the archaeological one didn't apply to us, but you have to make sure that you're in contact with them.
You mean the State
Mhm.
Historical Commission?
I don't.
Well,
I can't
it's
remember, but I remember with Clearwater, we had to. There was
So-
some question about Native American activity there, and so we got a letter from. I have to go back through lots of files to try and find who that was. I don't think it was the State Historical Commission, but it was a state entity.
Yeah, yeah. I remember that too. And I think too, like when they, we at Concom, there's been the talk of obviously doing some issues around the removal of the dam there at Lyman Pond area.
Mm-hmm.
And I know the environmental study came in right around there, and they were looking at a couple of species that they designated as
Yeah.
protected species and stuff. So we might have to do something there. You're right. Yeah.
So they're looking just for a yes or no, and not really a narrative, correct? Oh, that's 4.2. So the point
Wouldn't it be
is,
no?
Huh?
Sorry, Paul, go ahead.
so this is an easy answer here. So regardless of what it is, we say that this project is going to go through a early environmental coordination through Mass DOT's process, which identifies all historic or any archaeological or any environmental impacts. So that is a pretty extensive process in itself. So that identifies that. So, we can link back to the DOT process, which addresses these permitting efforts, both local and state level.
Okay. Just because we'll have the DOT money, right?
Well, no, it's because it's a requirement. It's part of the permitting requirements. Basically, when you take these federal funds or state funds, you have to take it through their categorical exclusion sections that identify all different types of permitting that you look at, and just to make sure you're not triggering any sort of additional efforts that are beyond your typical impacts per se.
Okay. So saying that because we would coordinate, we would go through Mass DOT's process.
Exactly. That's going to be identified. And it's called the Early Environmental Coordination.
Oh, that's what I was missing.
So
Thank you.
EEC.
Coordination. Okay. EEC. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's the Early Environmental Coordination that is through the Mass DOT process that identifies all these, I think it's like 13 criteria that includes different permitting, from historical to endangered species to other
Great.
components that are, typically reviewed.
Very good. Okay. Good to know. All right. Will there be any excavation per se? I would assume.
Yes.
Yes.
Minimal. Yes. And I think the key word's minimal.
Yeah.
And I think the answer to 4.4 is to say that we're going to maintain the existing grades as much as possible and we're going to build a rail bed, take out the rail bed and replace it with a trail bed for the construction of the asphalt and the gravel base.
Mm-hmm. So the railroad ties and the rails themselves would be removed?
Correct.
Yes.
So they wouldn't just be paved over then? No?
Absolutely not.
Okay. Okay. All right. Wetlands permitting again.
Yes.
Yep. That would be most likely. Yeah. And then we'll have to obviously talk to Concom about this on their meeting, I guess, too. Yeah.
And I don't think we need to talk about it now, to be honest with you. The answer is easy. I think we say what steps, and I think we identify that in our feasibility study that we've identified these areas, and I think they have been. And that also leads back to the subsequent questions, which we circle back and say that these areas of impact will be, will be identified during the early environmental coordination, which answers the subsequent questions with natural heritage and rare, wildlife and rare species. So basically that identifies the subsequent questions, which are in the early environmental coordination.
Okay, so is that EEC, is that a separate funding required, or is that part of the 6 million?
The 6 million is strictly for construction. The EEC is part of what we pay for the design fee.
Okay, all right, so that's part of our design. Okay, got it. Okay, what is MEPA?
MEPA, Mass Environmental Protection Act.
Okay.
So basically, the answer to this is likely yes. This will need a MEPA review because the thresholds are relatively small. Like, for example, one of them is the removal of 5 or more trees that are 14 inches in diameter at breast height. So that's an easy one to meet based on receiving state funding. So the easy answer is yes.
Okay.
and it's say likely for trees. Tree removal is the low hanging fruit.
Okay.
Pardon the pun.
I think we said no on that one, so definitely remove some trees, but oh well.
That's what most communities get locked up on is the tree removal component. Oh. So what they try to do is try to remove it locally using funds, from DPW or general funds in the community to avoid going through the MEPA process. The MEPA process, that's like $20,000 just to say yes, we'll remove 5 trees throughout the project.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah, it's a pain in the neck.
Yeah. Yeah, we have to do the NHESP review, and that's $300.
That's cheap.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Any other permits required that we are aware of, or that's part of the whole?
And I think we say that I think we say no because we don't. The answer is no.
Okay.
Oh, actually, take that back.
Yeah.
We
have to do an NOI. I don't really understand all that.
That's a notice of intent of the Conservation Commission, and that's the previous section we discussed.
Yeah.
So with the NOI, it's basically permitting, the disturbance areas that are within the buffer of wetland and resource areas.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's not a RDA, or request for determination. But it's a more serious one, and that's part of the whole design component. Once again, that will be identified too during the early environmental coordination. So.
Yeah, because I would assume there would be several places along there that would require the NOI, right? There must be several places that would touch near the wetlands.
I would be shocked if we didn't have any NOI permitting.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
No, it might be also worth asking the question, since the money that we're requesting is not being used for all of these extra steps. This money is really being used just for the land acquisition. Like I feel like a lot of these questions are geared towards people or projects where people are really actually trying to carry out these steps, where we're really just taking this money and using it for, like, the scope of the project right now is just land acquisition. So I wonder if it's worth, as part of your, I know you're talking to Amanda, Chris, just to say how much of this is really worth going into extensive detail, because we're not pulling permits.
We're not in the
down
project,
trees. we're not at that point yet. We're at the point of land acquisition.
Yeah.
So I wonder if the reason they're asking all these questions is for projects that are actually using these funds to carry out those steps.
Well, yeah, I think that's the bulk of what it probably is. It wouldn't hurt. I mean, if I can get a hold of her, I definitely would throw that in there. I would think it's not bad to go ahead and fill this out, as long as we don't have to, go to excruciating detail. But
right.
I think that's an excellent point. But from the state agency standpoint, I've been dealing a lot with MassWorks recently, and surprisingly, they want to see detail that is identifying the progress of the project in terms of, have we looked at these particular components?
mm-hmm.
Have we, is this half baked in terms of where we stand with the project? And I think we probably don't need to be extensive in every single response, but I think we can circle back to Mass DOT. Maybe we have an intro in one paragraph where it talks about the DOT process, which is going to require the environmental. And then I think we repeat that answer subsequent sections to say that we will address this during the early environmental. Yes, it's required, and specifics will be identified during the early environmental coordination.
Okay. No, that's fair. Yep. Okay. Well, that's good to know, though. I think there are ways to work around that too. But I think if I can get her on the phone, I can get a little bit more specificity here. So no particular equipment that I'm aware of, right? So this whole section, I think we can kind of most likely ignore right now. Again, if we're going through acquisition. Basically.
Well, you got some other stuff here that 5.4 identifies usage.
I think that's for
the
equipment.
Oh, equipment. Okay, I didn't see that. Okay, yeah. Okay.
So this whole thing is, if we want to buy equipment, what are we going to do with it, kind of thing. So none of this, and it's that Buy America stuff and whatever else. Doesn't look like that whole Section 5 would apply.
Which they did say that the Buy America thing might go away with the new transition to a new administration.
Could be, yeah.
Well, that Buy America's been in there since.
Yeah.
It's been there for 30, 40 years. So it's not actually that was even reinforced during 2008, 2009 when Obama was in place with the Recovery Act, where that was even more stringent, believe it or not.
Well, this just applies to steel, I think.
Oh,
And I think
steel?
they said it's only steel, and it had only been in there 5 or 6 years, I thought they said, but I could be wrong.
Yeah.
The Buy American actually goes to everything, not only steel. It's from materials that include PVC for pipes or other components. So it's actually quite extensive in the list. And in reality, when you look at the Buy America list, it's half the countries in the world that fall into that.
Yeah, probably. Anyway, but hopefully we don't have to worry about it if we're not buying any equipment at this juncture. So that's fine. So these are the kinds of supporting documents that they're going to be looking for. And I'm wondering, when I tried to access on the website, we've got the feasibility study. It's a very heavy document. It's very hard to transfer or do anything with, I found anyway, in the format that it's in. But I guess I'm wondering, Paul, is it possible to maybe pull off some maps and stuff from that?
What I can do is, I have a PDF editor that's like a professional version that I can size down any PDF file quite a bit. So I can make it much more workable if that helps.
That would be good. And I think to the extent that we've got some photos and maps or something there, maybe we could peel them off as a separate document too, that could be easily uploaded maybe.
Yeah, we can certainly extract various pages to identify to answer certain components.
Well, if it's helpful, we used WeTransfer. We had like a huge file of photos of the trail, and the only way to transmit them was through this thing called WeTransfer. So we'd send them there, and then the Mass Trails people downloaded them or looked at them there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Called WE transfer?
Yes.
Huh. Never heard of it. Okay.
I hadn't either until we did that.
Good to know. All right. And then other than that, you know, there's a budget and timeline, which goes into great levels of detail for the kinds of things that Diana would have done on the first round and the second round. But again, if we're looking for money just for acquisition, it shouldn't be that complicated. So that's another question I think for Amanda would be, you know, to what extent do we, you know, deal with the budget process the way that they have it lined up here. But I won't.
Is the maximum amount for this $300,000?
Yes.
Yes, it is. Yeah. So I guess that's the second question here. I think this is pretty much it. Let me just scroll down. I think this is the end of it. Plans, drawings, and that's pretty much it. So that's what it looks like as the form itself. And it all has to be done online. So I guess I would suggest that we might be able to work off of this template and try to fill it in, and then, you know, spend that tedious time transferring all that we've written online when it's time to do that.
Can I suggest maybe just using Google Documents, because I think that's something that's all shareable.
Okay.
You know, real time. So basically, I don't know if you ever used Google Docs, but
I have. Yeah.
you know, it's a real time update that it doesn't lose any section. So basically, I think you can save that as a doc file and upload it to Google Documents, and I think sections can be concurrently updated without killing the file.
All right. Well, that'd be great. Okay, and then when we're satisfied with it and complete, then I think we would just have to cut and paste right into the online application. Probably.
And the online application, you can save and resume. You can work on it, save it, you get a link to go back to it.
Okay.
Yeah, so I know the state's updating their systems, because I was talking to the MassWorks guys about that too, by the way. Particularly this last one we were working on, I think we try to avoid entering anything until the very end, because trying to keep a hold of those links, I don't know, Chris, if you can talk about that, but that was sort of a pain in the neck.
Yeah, exactly. No, I think we'd do better off to try and fill it out, like you say, on Google Docs. That's great. We can all chime in and, you know, put in things that we can deal with, and then when we're satisfied with it, then that would be the time to push the button and get it over to uploading it. Now, the question, I guess, Diana, did all the uploading on applying last time? So this is something that, can we do this one ourselves, or did Ed do that last time, or how did this work?
Well, it was under Marla's name, so yeah. I can't remember if she had to sign it digitally or not. I don't think so. Yeah. I think we just submitted it. Yeah.
I guess this one, since we're kind of acting as this ad hoc committee, I mean, other than putting it in under the Greenway Committee's name, I don't know, Ed, what do you recommend? What's appropriate here? For who would be the bidder, who would be the applier? The applicant.
I'd be the applier and the signer.
Yeah.
The signatory.
Signatory, okay. And do you think this would well, we would definitely have to let select board know about it. Would they don't need to really see your vote on the application or anything, do they?
I would probably recommend it.
Yeah, okay.
And somebody has to tell Concom.
Yep. Yeah. Uh-oh. Yes. Well, I will, you know, wait till we talk to Amanda and just see, but I'm hoping I'll get a hold of her early next week, and it'll be before the next Concom meeting anyway, but I would give Marla a heads up, you know, before the meeting, just to let her know. I mean, I know her concern is going to be that we're kind of internally competing.
Yeah.
And I guess that's partly true. Do we want to
Do we have an idea of what we're going to be requesting?
Yeah, I was going to say, what is the amount that we want to try and go for? Do we want to go for the...
Well, you go for the full thing. It's a critical project.
300? Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, yeah, the amounts, if you just go for the 340,000 acquisition costs, then it's $272,000 with the 20% deducted. If we go for the 370, which included, you know, legal fees and any items like that, which was an extra 30,000, then we'd be asking for 296,000, and then the local match on that is 74,000.
Yeah, I think I saw somewhere in some other piece that I read that it's only or maybe it was a different grant, but something was only for acquisition. It wasn't for other extraneous costs. So we might have to stick to the 340. Yeah.
We could do that. And then the other thing we could do is ask CPC to fund the estimated like legal costs or anything that go along with that necessary to close and what have you, because that would be eligible for CPC funds, whereas the actual acquisition would not.
Yeah. Okay, good point. All right. Okay, so this one is due February 1st, so we've got a month to play with it. And, you know, I think we can do our best to pull it together. It's not, you know, it's a lot to do, but I don't think it's quite as tedious as what Diana had to go through last year, because we don't have that level of detail in terms of design and cost. I mean, when we get to the next phase, we'll be pulling our hair out like she did last year, I'm sure, and is now. But I think we have a little bit easier road on this one. I may be wrong.
Yeah,
as we get into it. But
well, the acquisition is a much more simplified, you know, project than getting into whether it's requesting funds for design or actual, you know, construction and getting into that level of detail and and breaking that even out into a budget.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot more straightforward, obviously. So that's the question on that. Now, so are we all agreed that we want to go for this?
Yeah, I think that's great. Yep. I like the idea of doing it as a Google document, because maybe we could each, you know, kind of contribute a little bit more, or I don't know. I liked your color coding system, Chris. I really did.
It drives
but, you know, no, but I think that it would allow for each of us to kind of contribute more collaboratively instead of, you know, inserting a few sentences here and there. I mean, why not? And if you don't like it, we could delete it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And not only that, I think there's going to be a lot of repetition from sentence, you know, from section to section. So I think that kind of helps us kind of, you know, if we have questions in particular sections, I think there's easy lifting from one section to another.
Right. And I think it allows you, Paul, too, to sort of, you know, invite your committee members to chime in too. Anybody that's got some specific, you know, things to add, I mean, they're certainly more than welcome. I mean, that's the whole purpose of this. We're just trying to be the facilitators of it all. But
well, how does it work on Google Docs? Like if you see something and you think, oh, that's, you know, the grammar is incorrect or something, what do you do?
Well, there's you can highlight it. I mean, I'm not sure about like, you know, how in Word you have comments that you can add or whatnot. I'm not sure how that works in Google Docs, but my guess is I think you can just highlight it. You know, or make a note in the highlight saying this doesn't sound right, or, you know.
You can do comments or notes or something like that, because we do that in our company through Google Docs.
Yeah, I think so. And I think it puts like your initials or something, right? It shows who's making the comment, doesn't it? Am I wrong?
Yep.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. So you can do that. So yeah, that's one. So
old dog.
New techniques here. All right. So one other one to share, just as a thought. There was also the land conservation and oh dear.
It's Land and Water Conservation Fund.
Land and Water Conservation Fund, and that one didn't pull up the way I wanted to, so forget that one. Hang on here.
I was actually wondering if you were going to mention that, because it has the same deadline, and I didn't know if we could use that to fund maybe some more of the planning aspect of it, or just, you know, something else that we need funding for.
Yep. If
I can send you the link if you'd like.
No, I got it right here. I just got to get my cursor on the right silly thing here. I think. Yeah, here we go. I think. Yeah. So this one too is the same deadline as Kate has said. And Kate, did you watch the webinar or the grant meeting on this one at all?
I meant to watch the recording. I just couldn't join the actual meeting for it.
Okay. I did join the meeting for it, and the recording has been posted now. So
I saw that.
We can share the link on that for anybody that wants to. But this one too, same deadline, but also interesting. There's a little bit a little bit of a constraint maybe here. So we'll just take a quick look, but it's basically, this would definitely help us for any kind of park improvement, like for Conant Park or anything like that. I think this is one that, you know, would be one for, I don't know that we can get it together this year, but for next year for sure. I think this is one that, you know, would be something that would be of interest to the Park Commission. You know, there's a whole lot of work that needs to be done determining what would be the best needs for the park, you know, from a more community point of view, I think, to be ready to do something this year. But the one that's in here does mention development of trails in an existing conservation or recreation area. So that's, you know, a little bit broad for us, maybe.
Hey, Chris.
Municipalities that have open space plans under review. Yep.
Can we ask the question to both of these agencies? And the reason why I'm asking this is because they're very, they collaborate internally in the state from one agency to another. And I want to ask, or suggest we ask the question, if we go after both, are we automatically not going to get one because, let's say we get one awarded? I guess my point, where I'm going with this is there any negative to going out after two, which concurrently have the same, you know, or that they have the same deadline, which is kind of funny, because it's probably going the same structure, you know, same government, or the, you know, the Office of Energy and Environmental.
This is National Parks, I think, on this one.
I actually wondered if it would show that we were being, like, I agree that it might be worth asking the question, but I wondered, conversely, if it would show that we are really
determined.
Determined and show how much we're really committed to getting this project completed. I mean, we certainly are dependent on the grant funding.
Yeah, I mean, you can look at it both ways, but again, if I can get her on the phone, Amanda, I will definitely ask that. I did send off, we'll see in just a second, I'll get down to a couple points here that really concern me a little bit about this one. So maximum is a bigger possibility of a grant, from what this says here. And it's a reimbursement program, but the chicken before the egg here, I guess, is my question. Municipal applicants must have a successful, but this is selected to receive grant funding. So this sounds like after the decision has been made, if I'm reading this right, must have a successful town meeting to appropriate 100% of the cost. So we're not going to have a town meeting before what? May normally, unless we had a special one this winter, which we would if we didn't have COVID, right? So
right, we're not going to see a town meeting until May.
Right. So, but the way I'm reading this, applicants selected to receive grant funding. So it's not like we'd have to do this anytime soon. The May deadline might not be a problem, because I'm not quite clear how soon we hear about this one in terms of its response time, but I doubt it would be before the summer, because that's when you heard about the Mass Trails one, wasn't it, Diana? Or later, even? It was a little bit later, wasn't it?
Later, just because of COVID.
Yeah, and you had some initial response, right? If I'm not mistaken, because yours is a double state and federal, the Mass Trails one. So you had heard from state, but we couldn't say much until you really heard.
Right,
from
that was it. That was it. It was a real delay.
Right. Yeah. So before June, I don't think we'd hear anything anyway. So the chances timing wise are that we could maybe put this for a town meeting. But then again, so this appropriates the 100%. So that would be the same issue where we would have to put out a borrowing request or something like that.
Yeah, but even better if you're assured that you have it. I don't think people balk too much when they know that the money's there.
That's true.
I was actually wondering, I remember Paul mentioning during the last call about land surveying and the extensive, like $300,000+ for just the land survey. If we could make the scope of that just land, or the whatever project planning, or just the land surveying, which could be definitely completed before December 31st, 2023.
Mm-hmm. Rather than making this one a land acquisition one too? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, instead for more of the planning and surveying of the land.
Okay, maybe. Okay.
Maybe, right.
So that might answer Paul's concern a little bit too about having, you know, two things for the same kind of purpose at the same time.
But make this, yeah, right, make this separate. Because I mean, at least when I was looking at all the different grant options, I said, well, maybe this could be used for more the second step, you know, to get us closer to actually completing the project.
Yeah. Okay.
Chris, can you go back to the permissive expenditures that are allowed for this?
If I can find it, let me just shrink it down a little bit. Hold on. Let me just shrink it so I can find it here, back here.
Is it before? Did we just go through it before?
Where'd it go? Budget requirement, let's see. Funding availability, oh, come on. Was it much?
Oh, I guess is it C? What does it C say?
It says development of, how I read that is development of trails, and I would define development of, it says you can go to 2B, wherever 2B is, but I would think that development of trails would include the surveying and actual planning for creating the trails.
Yeah, I think that's a that's a no-brainer. I think that's a good point. I think we, you know, the whole design process is going to be.
Just a second.
And I think that the two projects or the two grants could be written to kind of
complement each other.
Right. One, in order to kind of show how we're requesting the money for the land acquisition. And if we get that full grant amount, it would cover the land acquisition, and then use this money for kind of the next step. Then that would put us so much closer to that, you know, Mass DOT money.
Yeah. I mean, this would make us look golden if we got this.
So it's open to those that have got the draft community, the open space plan, which we do. Land holdings that are single or contiguous may be packaged, so that's not really what we're doing here. But what did I see? This there's a whole thing about climate resilient communities, which they give extra points for. It might be a little bit harder to look at, but it's on this other mapping scenario here too that they refer to. But then what's interesting here is this part. So eligibility. So the OSRP on file, which we do, submit an application prior to acquisition of the subject property. Land already owned is not eligible.
Well, that's us.
So I found that rather interesting. You know, as I read through the fine print here, and then so that's a newbie that just take a minute and just read through that a little bit if you want, for 2 to 4, because
and it says that acquisition, we're not eligible.
Huh?
It says that the acquisition must be before December 9th.
What? Where? No. Where? No.
Number 4?
No, not the acquisition. No. To talk to the person. To talk to Melissa. And actually on the other part of the website, that deadline got changed to December 30th. So I have emailed Melissa, and she's going to get back to me next week. She said she didn't have time to talk this week. So I did put a request in by December 30th to talk to her about this, because this is the thing that I don't understand whatsoever. So let me just scroll down just a tad. So must be in touch with her to coordinate the appraisal process. So this is, what's going to happen. They basically have a big say in who to hire to do the appraiser. They write the statement of work, et cetera, and whatever is the yellow book standards. Anybody got an idea, Paul?
So this is actually, I think this is this is something she's probably gonna have to answer given the unique circumstance we're in. This is not a pure acquisition of the property as the town is the new owner.
We're acquiring the right of way.
Correct.
Under a rail banking agreement. So yeah, it's not a pure acquisition. You're correct.
So the appraiser, I think, is a definition, or the section of that, I think is if we were the full owner. And I think that needs to be explained to Melissa, that we're not buying it due to the nature of this corridor. We're buying the right to use it, but we're not, we can't. I mean, the rail banking word, yes. I think we throw that out there. And
so it's still going to have that reversionary ability that the railroad could come back in year 98 and take it back if they want to.
Correct, but it's highly unlikely.
Right. But I mean, that's the stumbling block with the CPC funds, right? So
exactly.
Okay, so the issue is, even if we get this right away, we seal the deal with the railroad, we're not technically owning the property as the town, though?
No, we're owning the
right away.
The right. No. We're owning the right to use.
Owning the right to use it. Okay. So we're owning the right to use it, but we're not acquiring the land per se.
So let me explain another component that I don't know if this is too inside baseball with this particular section, but
go for it.
through the DOT process, there's a concept or process that involves preliminary right-of-way work that basically the consultant and the surveyor prepare a set of plans that identifies any permanent or any temporary easements that are identified that go outside of the Pioneer Valley in this case. So for example, given that the way that the rail banking is, if there's a, let's say the rail banking corridor is, just for argument's sake, let's say it's 20 feet wide, right? Let's say we need to encroach into personal property that is beyond the 25-foot or whatever corridor that's there. You need to identify a temporary taking or easement for construction purposes or even grading or whatever. Now, that is something that the town has to do at a basically from the beginning of the project. You start doing or looking at that, and then once the project is getting close to build or to procurement or let to bid, you need to have that fully completed, meaning that you hire an appraiser that is approved through the Mass DOT process to basically assess the value of the temporary takings or the temporary easements or the or full-blown taking through that process. So I guess that's something to keep in mind when you talk to Melissa about that process, because that is something that's not dictated necessarily by her or her department. It's dictated by Mass DOT's SOP for the preliminary right-of-way plan. So basically, after the preliminary plans are developed, a surveyor comes on board and basically records these temporary easements or permanent easements or these takings with the Registry of Deeds. So that's a very extensive project, and actually this is going to cost the town a lot of money too. So, that doesn't even include the funds that I was suggesting we need for the design or survey. This is a totally separate animal.
It's a separate step altogether.
Correct. But when you start funding that doesn't happen probably until, we don't start really needing those funds probably until a year into the process, right? Because there's so much throughout the design process that can change, meaning that DOT, let's say halfway through our design submittal process, can come back to us and say, well, you really need to regrade this. We don't like how it's connecting to this property. So you need to go another 20 feet.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a live process to develop those areas.
Yeah. Okay. So if I get this right, so the basic takeaway when I'm talking to Melissa is that we are not really acquiring the land per se, but we're acquiring the right to, or we will own the right to use the railway property, right?
And neighboring parcels for temporary easements. I think that's the, just throw that out there as a discussion point, because, and she's like, well, I mean, she's probably gonna ask you, well, how is that going to be determined? I go through our process, and you say, no, it's dictated through Mass DOT.
Yeah.
So I'm just going through what she might ask you.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's good to know. We won't go through all this, but I just wanted to bring out those couple of points and just sort of see what you think there. Let's see. What am I talking about here? Anything in particular?
Well, it says in this section about how about climate resiliency would increase the maximal amount for $1 million, but I didn't know if planning for this trail would help us to fit in that category.
So this is a tricky one, and I think we're too preliminary to really ask for its maximum potential, because this is more of like a construction dollar that would probably fall into. And where I'm going with this is, let's say the culverts that we have that cross underneath the rail bed, let's say they are undersized, meaning that they create a dam condition that that doesn't get enough throughput, or there doesn't have enough bandwidth for the water potential to go through. But let's say today's projects that we work on don't only look to get the water across, it also make sure we have enough wildlife passage underneath these culverts as well.
Right.
So the point I'm trying to make is, it's hard to know at this level if we want to even talk about it, because there's so many unknown, there's so much modeling and so much review of what's really there. So I almost feel like that's a throwaway question on this application, because there's not a single project in the state that will ever be able to answer that in earnest.
Yeah, and I think even without the climate package, the all that does is knock the maximum down to 750. So it's still
right. So we'll be, Paul, in your experience with this, in terms of planning and surveying, I mean, is it possible to kind of throw an estimated, or has it been determined in the past that there's an estimated cost associated with the surveying and planning for this?
Well, that's an easy calculations for us to do. Basically, we can say it's ranges from 10 to 12% of the entire project based on industry standard and discussions with consultants, or even I can give a write-up to talk about how that's in guidance. So basically, what's going to happen is our budget is going to be, even though we're going to be in construction, even the project's being funded by Mass DOT, but we alone are going to be hiring a consultant. They'll take a look at our agreement and our dollars, believe it or not, that we will have with a consultant, just to make sure that this project is moving properly, and that there hasn't been anything forgotten, because the last thing the state wants to do is commit this project to a certain date and identify the town's not ready to fund it through, the goalpost per se, right?
Yeah. So,
they're going to look at how we do this, but I think from a budget standpoint, I think it's an easy statement to say, and this project's length is 3.5 miles. The project cost is estimated at 6 million, and the industry standard based on discussions with various consultants is anywhere from 10 to 12%, if not more, you know, particularly with the acquisition costs. And you know, that's the other thing. Maybe we have a line item for the acquisition process through Mass DOT, not through this. Basically, we say that the town is going to need $80,000 to hire an appraiser to basically identify, individual property impacts, right, for temporary easements and so on. But the problem is we need to spend this by when? December 2023? Is that?
I think so, yeah. Yeah.
So we might not be there in time to get that spent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what would, let's just figure out that what would be, if you think this is worth also trying to go for, what kind of dollar amount would we want if we didn't do either we could do this as more acquisition costs as a backup in case the other one doesn't come through, right? For the same 300,000, or we could make this a different purpose altogether. And so let's just all be clear. What would be that purpose, and then what amount would we want to say for then?
Well, I think we're shooting ourselves in the foot if we go for both of these being acquisition, because we're guaranteed one. Yeah. If we go with both, and the fact that what I'm trying to stress is that this is a critical missing link in the New Haven to Northampton rail corridor, correct?
Yep.
So the point I'm trying to say is that I think there's a lot of state pressure for this to be moving.
Yeah, I think so.
You know, and I think we use that to our advantage and build from that to, you know, to not even use this for acquisition. We go for the full, you know, for the, let's say we're going to ask for $700,000, right? Or 750 or something of that nature. I can't see us being less than $700,000, right? Given what, you know, 10% already puts us into 650, and then the survey, you know, that's another 2 to 3%. So, you know, that brings us up into 700, you know, 50,000 right there for that.
Yeah. Okay. So again, if we ask for the max of the 750, is that what you think?
Yeah, and I think we just give them a line item that identifies the specifics, right? And you know, go from there. So, and they know already what these things cost, particularly, you know, these guys aren't dummies. So it's not like we're not going to pass the straight face test when we ask for, you know, design the line item is $650,000, and then, you know.
Well, I tell you what, Paul, what would really help, because I probably won't get Melissa until early next week when she said she'd get back to me. If in the meantime, sometime you could shoot me an email with just a 3 or 4 sentences of a good purpose statement of what we would, you know, use the 750 for.
Yeah, I'll get that over to you.
That would be real helpful, whether, you know, we're talking design and survey, or, you know, what we're really, you know, looking at, you know, clearly that would be, you know, reasonable for them to think about. And then we can, you know, after we talk with both of these people, sort of see what we're doing. But I kind of feel we can juggle, well, we may need to juggle both, but I mean, they're both due at the same time, but I don't know. It's sort of like everything kind of presents itself all at once, but there are times.
Copy and paste. I think there's gonna be a lot of copy and paste.
Yeah, this is something I think that, you know, could be done. I haven't gone in like I did with the Mass Trails to really look at the actual application yet, so I'll play with that a little bit more to see what the application itself looks like.
Is there a list of what they awarded last year? I'm just curious.
That would be interesting.
I'm sorry?
A list of what was awarded in previous.
Under the LWCF one? Under the land one?
Correct. Yeah,
okay, we can look for that. Yep, sure.
Just curious.
Yep. Hey, Kate, I'm going to assign that to you. Can you look up and send it around?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm actually I'm trying to see if I can find that right now.
Perfect. And just shoot it around to us afterward, because I think we'll probably end up the meeting here. I just wanted to do this, but I think, you know, if everybody's in agreement, I think we can try and go for 2 grants, different purposes from what I'm hearing, maximum amount 300 on one, 750 on the other, and do our best to work out a Google Docs. We'll make a Google Doc for both of them, and I will get more detail on the, if there's a template on the LWCF one that we can work from as well, and see where we go. But I think let's go for it and see how we do. What the heck?
Yeah, what's the worst that can happen, right?
The worst that could happen is 750 we get, and the other one we won't.
Right, there you go.
That's the worst that could happen.
That's a possibility, isn't it? Yeah, exactly. Well, you know, I mean, otherwise, if we don't do it now, if we don't jump on it now, even though it's, you know, another time constraint, but we do have a month at least, you know, we're going to wait again another year for something appropriate to come along. And, you know, time keeps passing. And I think we really do have to jump on this because the state is paying attention, and you know, we're being invited to try and apply for it. So
there's another document that it references to see, like, make sure what you're applying is appropriate. And it's a federal financial assistance manual. And I opened it. It says, make sure that the project complies under National Park Service, Land and Water Conservation Fund State Assistance Program. And I think we can just also, I'll take a look through that and see if there's anything that we're talking about that doesn't fall within those limitations. Yep.
Sure, just highlight anything that you think is a little bit weird or worrisome.
That's a long document. It's,
yeah, I'm sure it's
127 pages. So, but I think it's worth just making sure that we're within those categories, or you know, we're not asking for something out of that.
So, yeah, good.
All
right.
So I'm hearing, yeah. I mean, I think we need to hit the iron while it's hot. You know, go after these two grant programs. What I'm hearing from MassWorks is that they're doing a lot more interstate discussions for these projects, right? And it's almost like they're being very strategic about where they're going to be throwing these dollars at. So what I'm getting at is, on the MassWorks funds, right? They want to leverage private dollars to where they're going to be throwing public dollars for infrastructure improvements. We had a meeting with MassWorks a couple of weeks ago for another project on the other side of the state, and what they told us was something quite interesting, is that the Baker administration is actually basically putting these heads together of these different agencies to kind of come up with the best spending of these dollars. And they're connecting the dots also, you know, from a project need standpoint, which we already have the, you know, 6 million, but they're also looking from a private standpoint, I know, which is not a consideration in this project, but you know, they're very aware now with the fact that state funds or state income hasn't, or state revenue dollars haven't been all that great due to COVID. They're very specific or very particular about where that's going to go next year. So I think our best bet, you know, looking at it from a strategic standpoint, is to go after these two different avenues and, you know, see what we can get, what sticks.
Yeah, well, and so even when I get a hold of this Melissa person on the land grant one, you know, the question about land acquisition, I think I'll ask it anyway, just to get her feel for it, but let her know that our preference is probably going toward whatever the design survey combo, that you know, that would be our more likely thing if she's in agreement with that idea. And it will help us to know a little bit more what other communities maybe have gotten in that regard. But yeah, I think, you know, let's give it a try. Okay, well, I think that we ought to pretty much call it quits. If anybody has anything else, I would like to suggest that we just set a date for the next meeting and then we adjourn. So
probably 2 weeks, right? I mean, I feel like we have a lot of work or a lot to pull together before the end of the month, right?
Absolutely. Now we said, I know Concom, Diana, you said Concom is meeting on the 11th, is that right?
Correct. Yeah.
And Ed, remind me, Select Board is on the 12th, I think?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. So the question is, do we need to meet in a week's time after I've heard from both of these people? just a briefer meeting just to report out rather than.
So what do we need from Concom?
Concom,
I think out of
yeah,
spirit of cooperation, we just need to tell them that we're applying for this Mass Trails grant. It's
also.
not, I mean,
yeah,
it's been in the works for over a year for them to apply too, and
yeah.
Well, maybe they'll see it clearly in that. I mean, you highlighted the statement that you can apply for multiple grants, right? And we've kind of requested that information.
Yeah, it's just that it does give the impression that we're kind of, you know, competing against each other, which isn't what we really want to do. You know, but I mean, you know, and like I said, the Mass Trails folks had encouraged us to divide the grant that we did get for Manhattan Meadows last year, and do half of it then and apply for the other part of it now, which is what Diana's been working on. So, you know, they're 2/3 done in terms of getting ready with their grant to submit it for round 2. And here we come along. So I think just out of professional courtesy, just to be sure that Concom, you know, knows what we're doing. And that's sort of the reason that we're doing it, is because we're too getting this push from the state to show that we're acting on money.
And I think stresses that aspect too, that the state is kind of insisting that that we act on the Greenway.
Right. So I guess I would like to, you know, I'll end up probably asking to be on the agenda for the 11th for them. Do we want to meet just very briefly on the 6th or the 7th, just to hear what I may have heard by then from these two people, or?
That would be great.
Does that work for people? And not a long meeting, but just to hear that. And then in the meantime, we'll get the Google Docs thing going. We can start that ahead of time. I'll get something started and put it up on Google Docs. And what do you think, Paul?
I think that's a great idea. My only concern Wednesday nights is my planning board.
Oh, okay.
At 7. So
okay.
If it's done beforehand.
Yep.
On Wednesday or Thursday.
Yeah. How about Thursday? Thursday might be the better night for most people. Is it? Is that okay?
Sure.
I know. Yeah. Ed, does that work for you? I know it's the end of your work week, technically, sort of, almost.
Ed doesn't stop.
Never.
Yeah.
I think that'd be great, because then maybe we can kind of touch base about the things that that they got funding for before. We could make sure we're on the same page about the Google Docs, and then you know, maybe figure out who's going to take responsibility for certain parts of the applications for both things.
Right. Sure. Okay. All right. Well, let's go for the January 7th at, is the 5:30 time frame okay?
Sure.
And you'll send out a Zoom invite?
I will. Yep. Okay. Sounds great. All right. So with that in mind, could I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Somebody second it?
Second.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
Oh, no. You gotta do the roll call vote.
You gotta do the roll call vote.
Gibson, aye.
Fowles, aye.
Aye.
I don't have a
Fowles,
vote.
aye.
Yep. Just the 3 voting members right now.
Oh, I don't need to vote. I'm not a voting member.
Yeah. Good. Well, thanks, guys. Appreciate it. And we will adjourn at about 7:05. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
Right. Happy New Year, guys.
Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.